time to ham up.
Oh, I gotta really try hard.
Shut it down!
Somehow it's the best.
After the credits.
A YumChunks podcast.
YumChunks!
Spiders. Lots of spiders. Welcome to YumChunks podcast and After the Credits. This is something like that. This is Matt Shui. Welcome. You are joining us with everything's all mixed up because of the multiverse. Ryan Davis. Hello, Ryan Davis.
Whoa, it's all topsy-turvy.
Whoa, what'd you get here? Through the portal.
When
the
or
portal of, I guess, how? Where? From where did you get?
Why did you get here?
I'm from Earth 42. It was meant for me.
Oh, okay. Do we have Sean Davis here?
Hello, Governor. I'm the one that has the
Hobby?
Hobby. Yeah.
Charles Dickens.
Charles Dickens.
From the Sean Davis from the
Actually,
Charles
that'd
Dickens.
be a great Spider-Man. I want to see a Dickensian Spider-Man. That would be awesome. Like a street urchin, like. I was gonna say not Taylor Swift. What's the Oliver Twist?
Well, there's got to be a universe where Taylor Swift is Spider-Man.
Oh man, I want to see both of these Spider-Verses. God.
Well, we got a whole other Spider-Verse locked and loaded for us at some point in the future. So, exactly. Taylor Swift Spider Swift. Hashtag Spider Swift. Make it trend, listeners. All hundreds and thousands of you. Make it trend. Hashtag Spider Swift.
I bet you'd be on board.
All right. Well, this is episode 120 of After the Credits, the YumChunks podcast. And if you're wondering, why are they still doing this after 120 episodes? So are we.
We had to get at least the same amount of stars that there are in Super Mario 64.
Is that accurate? Is that how many there are?
Yeah, there's 120 stars in Mario.
Isn't there like 1,000 in Odyssey? There's like some crazy high number. Yeah.
I think, well,
there's 800 something unique ones, but you can
buy the rest.
Get up to 999. Yes.
What do you mean buy the rest? With like money?
Well, coins.
Wait, didn't you play it? I thought you played it.
I put I don't know. I probably put like 20 hours into it, which is like
for a Mario game, it's a lot.
For these days, it's like the max amount of hours I want to put into any video game.
Well, if you collect coins and that, well, you collect coins and all, but that's like your currency. There's little shops where you could buy outfits and stuff.
Right. I like that one of the outfits you could buy is just no clothes. You have to purchase that though. You have to purchase the ability to run around in your underwear. But that was my first purchase.
It was money well spent.
I need that Mario
I guess
skin.
You're purchasing ideas. Like Mario didn't have that idea. Like, you mean I don't have to wear a shirt?
You have to pay somebody to tell Mario that this is an option. All right. What are we talking about? Okay. So we're going to be talking about Across the Spider-Verse, which is the sequel to the critically acclaimed, came out of nowhere animated hit film Into the Spider-Verse from 2019, I think is when it came out. Something like that. Before we do that, let's engage in our ritual of unloading all these heavy, heavy chunks that we've been carrying around and burning them. And I think first let's stop in. Let's do a little check-in with Sean Davis and see what Sean Davis has been up to and what he's about. Sean, here you go.
Thanks, Chewy.
Yeah.
What's happening in my neck of the woods?
I don't know. You tell us.
Well, quick little update for listeners, because I did say last episode that I would check into if you could make seafood fricassee in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Oh. So I spent 10 hours since our last episode just cooking in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which is kind of a joke, but honestly, I know people have spent longer cooking. Because there's literally hundreds of dishes you could cook. And my results are that I was not able to find anything that is so specifically called seafood fricassee, but there's like at least a dozen or more dishes that have, like, there's seafood soup, creamy seafood soup, there's seafood rice balls, there's seafood paella, seafood curry, seafood kebab, seafood just like fried seafood. Like, there's all these versions of seafood, and So I think that like the fricassee, what we were looking up, kind of falls into something like that.
It's like a stew, but like also,
yeah,
I don't know, a seafood and gravy a dish you can make.
not labeled as such, but you can make seafood. There's creamy seafood soup.
That's
but
got to be
that
it.
sounds like a stew, right? Like that sounds like seafood
Seafood stew.
fricassee. So it's not 100%, but I feel like the thought is there, the intention is there. So,
Well,
close enough.
That's I admire the effort that you put into this for finding out the answer to this question posed in the last episode. And might I just say, if it were me playing and I spent 10 hours trying to make seafood fricassee, that would be half the amount of hours I would be able to spend before giving up, stopping the game and starting something else.
You won't even know that you could take off Link's shirt.
Yeah, right?
You don't have to buy it. Link doesn't need to be taught that, though. You could just do it.
That's because he's a man.
Ability. Yeah, he's smarter than Mario, I guess. Anyways, but yeah, so still plenty of Zelda, deep into Zelda. Another thing that is just a rehash of last episode, and that is I watched I Think You Should Leave all the way through for another time, which is not worth going entirely through again. But on this recent watch, a couple more sketches that jump out at me that I think are worth mentioning, which stand out as some faves. You got Shirt Brothers. The Shirt Brothers sketch is one of my is a really good one from this season that I like.
Oh yeah,
we're Shirt Brothers.
I forgot about that one.
Shirt Brothers, I need you. Shirt Brother, I need. It's like, I promise me 1,000,000 times that you won't ever do another rule. There's some good stuff there, and then just in general, I like a lot of the songs that are original in this season. They're so like you don't even notice them. They're a lot in the background, but there's the sketch with like the guy's birthday party at the office kind of thing, and Patty Harrison's like,
oh
weird.
yeah,
but they're doing
feeding
karaoke.
him shots and stuff.
Feeding him shots, and she has her rat pets. But like, there's the song they're singing at karaoke, and then plays over the end. It's like, wild on, tonight we're going wild on. I don't know, like, listening to that again was great. They're really funny. And then one of, I think, might be my top 3 favorite sketches this season is the Tim Meadows sketch, The Photo Booth, where...
Oh, yeah, he puts a feather down his throat. I can't think of something this fast.
Yeah, it's like 3
Tim
seconds.
Meadows was so
it's
good.
Not enough time. It's like, the purple I could have been Barney. Like, could have been like Barney's hair. Look at me a Barney, like Barney's hair. He's like a cloth. Cloth is hairs. They're little tiny hairs. It's great. So, anyways, just wanted to revisit that because why not? Because it's something I did and I loved it and I laughed. So, anyways, there's that. And then something that we occasionally bring up on this on Chunkfire, and that is it's been another GDQ, which is Games Done Quick season. They had the big marathon the last couple weeks. It actually seemed to go longer than most cases. We've talked to Farah a bit about a lot of different crazy speedruns they do. I just want to highlight 2 or 3 that I thought were kind of unique. Someone did a speedrun of the original Super Mario Brothers one-handed.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah, and he beat in every single level, not using warps, and he did it in like 20 minutes, one-handed. And one of the coolest things, and I don't know if I ever knew this, is there's a bug where you could get Fire Mario as Little Mario. Like, you could be, small Mario with fire, and it has the correct, like, it's the correct art. Like, you're in the white suit, but it's a little like they have it in the game.
Right, they left that game asset in there for some reason, but it's weird because every time you shoot a fireball, you turn big for a second.
For like 1 frame, you get a big Mario. But otherwise, it plays and looks like it's intentional. But I had never known that was even possible. But it's just crazy also, like, playing a game one-handed on the old NES controller, and something like as simple as moving backwards becomes immediately more complicated. But it was just really impressive. Obviously, playing through that game, all levels in 20 minutes, and, like, he didn't die. And maybe he died once or something, I don't know. But,
Well, what I liked about that run is that he's showing off this very lesser known weird thing about the game.
Yeah.
But he's doing it because it is faster to do that.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy part, because there's all kinds of secrets hidden in video games that we will never know about, and even these kind of showcases where they spotlight those sort of things will never get revealed.
Yeah.
But here we get to see it specifically because being small while being able to shoot fireballs is a faster way to run the game.
You can, because you're smaller, you can move through, there's parts of levels where you only could get through if you're small or whatever. So it's like, and just even like maneuvering around enemies and obstacles is easier if you're small because you have a smaller hitbox, all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty impressive. That was a highlight. And then there was similarly Mega Man 6, one of the Mega Mans, one of the original old school Mega Mans, but it was 2 players on the same controller. So one person was controlling movement and the other person was controlling the A and B button, so jumping and firing. And it's funny because just watching the video is just like, well, it's just someone playing Mega Man. But like when you think about the coordination involved and what that entails, it's pretty impressive. And obviously they're going through fast and they're like beating bosses without taking damage. They know exactly the timing of jumps and how, like, coordination. So that was another fun one. And then the last one I mentioned, just because it's always impressive, but also because it's Zelda, and that is a Zelda Breath of the Wild speedrun that he beat it in like 90 minutes, and he did it blindfolded, which those are always just so ridiculous to me that someone... Yeah, like,
that's not real.
It's
look
funny.
It up. It's pretty crazy.
It's crazy, and it's like, obviously he's really good, and there's all these little tricks, and I think there's like 1 or 2 like weird kind of glitches, but in general, it's not really a glitched run. It basically, he plays through it pretty legit how you would potentially do it, but like he's having to do so much based on sound. So he's like literally counting the sound effects of Link's steps as he's running. He's like counting how many times he's hopping left or right. But then there's a couple times it's kind of funny where he does get a little messed up. And it's funny because like the whole run, it looks like, man, this guy is like an expert and he's timing shield parries, which if you know Zelda, that's pretty impressive, even when you're able to look at the game, but let alone blindfolded. All this stuff. But then he gets one thing off, like out of whack, and then it just looks like he's like someone who doesn't know how to play video games, right? Because he's doing all these memorized movements, but not in the exact right context. It's just a hilarious kind of mess where he's running into walls and slashing at nothing, and like, I don't know. But overall, it's just like crazy impressive what they're doing. So
yeah, it doesn't seem possible. I mean, it seems like you'd run into monsters that wouldn't be there, and I don't know. It just seems like you can't account for everything.
Yeah, well, and that's one aspect. There's a few things that are random, and there's ways they account for it and try to make up for that. A lot of things are nice because like when you enter cutscenes or trigger IGCs, those are always just like, yes, benchmark, we got there, because the game will always put the player back at the exact same location after an IGC, right? So you could always know exactly, you could orient yourself. But yeah, and like in the boss fight, he died like 5 times in a row, and it was just like, man, you could see him struggling. But he was still able to like get headshots with the bow and arrow like that. I don't even know how that worked, but he was able to get like headshots aiming with the bow and arrow, blindfolded. Anyways, I would definitely recommend it, even if you're not like a fan of just like speedrunning in general. Those kind of runs were just like so impressive, partially because they're doing it fast, but partially just because what they're actually doing is ridiculous, aside from it being fast. So and then my last chunk is a movie I saw and an episode we're not going to be doing, and that is Transformers Rise of the Beast. Came out last week. I don't know why I saw this. I don't know. but I did.
Sean, I was doing something the other day, and I had to kill a few hours, and I was like, I could see Transformers, or I could see Fast X, or I could see Little Mermaid again. And I went with Little Mermaid.
I mean, after seeing all 3 of those, you made the right decision. And listeners know what that means based on our last episode, how we felt about Little Mermaid. But Rise of the Beast, I really dislike the Transformers franchise, those movies. I'm not a fan of, except for Bumblebee, the most recent one, which was pretty decent, was pretty good and fun. All the rest of them, they're just so, I really don't like them. So compared to those, this one's better. Like, it's less offensively annoying, and partially, and I think most significantly, is because it doesn't have the, Michael Bay stink on it. If that means anything.
No, it does. Yeah.
He I guess he's still a producer, but he didn't direct this one. So that's a good thing overall. Although it does feel, I think, a little more generic because of that. Like, as much as those movies are awful, I hate them, they still are kind of like weirdly stick in your craw, and you could at least remember them for how just I don't know, aggravating they are in points, and just loud and sweaty they are, and stupid and ugly in so many ways. This is just more generally kind of generic, but I still liked it better. The Transformers themselves, I think, look better. The characters are less awful. I don't know. It's fine, but there's no reason for anyone to really go see this.
Well, then it does sound like I made the right choice. I never saw Bumblebee, but I've always said the best Transformers movie is Transformers: The Ride at Universal Studios, because it's 3 minutes long, and it's a ride, and you get to scream Optimus however many times you want while you're on it.
That's probably true. I've never ridden that ride, so I can't compare, but yes, that's right. I don't know you, but yes. So I mean, even if there's the Beast guys, whatever those guys, they're from something. They're in the cartoon, or they have the toys, right? So it's like, ooh, the Beasts, and they're kind of cool, I guess. I mean, they're animals, and Unicron's in this one. Was Unicron in any of the other ones? I don't know.
I think Unicron was in the animated.
Well, he was in the animated 80s one for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think he had been in any of the live-action Bay ones. I don't think. I don't remember, though. They all blend together.
So they have vehicles that turn into robots that turn into animals, or... Okay, but also, they already did dinosaurs, so it's kind of a step down in my mind.
Well, I think it's it's one of those, what's the word I'm looking for? But because I think Beast Wars was a different show than Transformers, right? But then
it was.
They did have some crossover, didn't they, or something? I mean, I guess it was all Hasbro. So
yeah, it's all Hasbro.
So
they're made to sell toys.
Yeah, obviously. So I think if it wasn't ever crossed over in the 80s cartoons and the Beast Wars cartoon or CG show, then maybe that's kind of the appeal of here's like, ooh, look at these two things we're crossing over. I guess. I don't know. It was fine that, they're animals that turn into robots. And then there's vehicles that turn into robots. Oh, so I didn't realize this, but the main character is Pete Davidson. Not the human character. The main robot character is Pete Davidson.
Oh.
Well, that's
the gorilla?
No, it's Mirage. I don't know if he's an existing Transformer or not, but he's kind of the main one. He's kind of... Bumblebee's in this, but he dies. Spoilers. So sorry, I guess spoilers. Bumblebee dies. But he comes back.
Say, hasn't he died before?
Well, I don't know. He died and then he comes back later in the film. But Pete Davidson's the main one who's buddies with the human.
Who's the guy from In the Heights, right?
Yeah, Anthony Rabos. And then RC's in this one, though. And I'm pretty sure RC had not been in any of the live-action movies. So that's kind of RC's in there. That's cool.
That was cool.
And yeah, I don't know. That's it.
But there are robots that turn into cars and robots that turn into animals.
Yes.
Because they're robots in disguise.
Exactly. And there is a line that actually got a chuckle out of me about not robots in disguise, but more than meets the eye or something like that in the film.
Oh, okay. And to say if I saw a mechanical gorilla, I'd be like, oh, that's not a robot. It's clearly
yeah, exactly. and it's 5 stories tall. And it's
that's just a gorilla. It's definitely not a robot.
I think there's a cheetah, there's an eagle, there's a rhino, and there's there's something else. Anyways, but they're all in the jungle in South America or something. It's not worth anyone's time unless you are just hardcore super fan of Beast Wars and don't care the quality of the film and just want to see him on a big screen. Then there's some moments that are fun, but not that big of a step up from the Bay Transformers in my opinion. So. But anyways, that's all of my chunks. I took up enough chunking time, so let's pass the chunk torch to Chewy.
Hello. All right. I've been seeing some movies. my wife and I are big Always Sunny fans, and two of the Always Sunny cast members had film projects recently. First one we saw was Fool's Paradise, starring Charlie Day. Don't go see that movie. No.
Aw.
Don't know if you've even heard of it.
I've heard it. I was thinking about seeing it, but that's too bad.
No, I can't recommend that to anybody. Yeah, I guess it was a passion project for Charlie Day. He wrote and directed it. He had been working on it for several years, and then COVID hit and caused it to delay it multiple times. Then there were rewrites and reshoots and all kinds of stuff. And yeah, it just is. It's weird, and it's just not very good. It has its moments, but yeah, it doesn't really come together. The other one, starring Glenn Howerton, he is the movie Blackberry. And I did like that movie quite a bit. It's on some streaming service. No, wait, we went to go see it in theaters. Yeah. Blackberry, the true-ish story of the rise and fall of the Blackberry smartphone and the invention of the smartphone. And, yeah, I like that one a lot. It's, it's fun to... I mean, this makes me sound really old, but it's fun to be like, oh yeah, I remember like those news headlines and the order that they came out, and I remember like seeing all this stuff happen in real time, but not knowing what was going on behind the scenes. I guess that's the appeal of those type of movies. But yeah, Glenn Howerton, I hadn't really seen him in anything else besides Always Sunny, so surprised to. It's very he's greatly cast, and also just not like anything he does in Always Sunny, so that was good. And then today I had to take my car in for some work, so I had some hours to kill. And I the only thing that was playing in that time was "Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret," which is an adaptation of a '70s Judy Blume novel, a very prolific, popular one that's been the subject of controversies and being banned several times and whatnot. It's just about a preteen girl going through puberty, like, and being like, I don't know, it's like, Pen 15, Turning Red, all those things were inspired by this book. And so this is a film adaptation, and I thought it was very good. I like coming of age stories, pretty much all of them. I love that genre. And I read that Judy Blume, the author herself, said that the movie was better than her own book. So, okay, cool. That means I never have to read it. Yeah, it's from the author. That's what she said. The movie does a better job telling my story than I did. So there you go. And then one last thing is not a film, but Maeve and I with some friends went to go see a concert the other night. It was Ludacris opening for Janet Jackson.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was a big show, and I guess I don't know if it was Ticketmaster or whatever, but a few months ago they were having a big sale on a lot of different shows, and Maeve picked up tickets for all kinds of different shows over the next few months. We're seeing Earth, Wind, and Fire this weekend with the same group of friends. But yeah, that one, the ticket for that, the cheapo Hillside seats were $25. So we went, and it was packed. It was crazy packed. I haven't been to a festival, like a music festival, but I have to, I've seen pictures and video, and just seeing how smashed in people were, that's what it was like. And I was surprised that for Janet Jackson, it was that crazy. And it was crazy. People were, and we arrived a couple songs into Ludacris' set, and people were already pretty, they had pre-gamed, we'll say. People were pretty rowdy already. But it was a great show. I don't care so much about Ludacris. I recognize a couple of his songs, and I thought his set overall was all right. But I was really surprised by how long Janet Jackson's set was, just how many songs she played, how much choreography there was. She's dancing like the entire set, and she's not young anymore. So
yeah, I was just gonna ask. She's kind of getting up there. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and there are a couple breaks. I want to say that there's like 3 breaks in the show where I'm like, okay, a costume change or a set change is happening here. Also, she's probably just like sitting for a few minutes. But during those breaks, there was always some cool tech thing going on. It was almost always laser shows. And I also thought that the production value, the production quality was really high, with all the lighting and the lasers and the set design. Everything about it was just like, it's one of those things where there's a lot of artists. So I would say, like, if I have an opportunity to see them, like, and they're a big name, like, I'd go see them, and I'm sure I'd have a good time, right? Like, I was never really a Janet Jackson fan, but I wasn't not a fan, you know. So really impressed by the performance, and we had a great time. So, and speaking of musical performances, I will pass the chunking thing over to Ryan Davis. Ryan Davis, it is your time now.
Yeah. Speaking of musical things, I went to Coachella this year. I guess that was over almost 2 months ago now. Geez, and I just haven't had a chance to share about it. I don't have too many oh, this crazy thing happened. You know, you're at a festival and you're gonna meet people and they're gonna be weird or not, and you'll go about your business. But I kind of want to just share a little bit about it. Maybe share some artists that I saw and some highlights. But I went with four other people, friends of mine, Mario, who I've mentioned on the podcast before, his girlfriend, and then two other folks who, one of which I was acquainted, the other was I had not met before. And as we're preparing to go, I guess a couple nights before the event itself, we went to Costco to kind of buy supplies that we'll need, because once you're on the fairgrounds and you're camping, you kind of you're locked in. You're locked in into an environment where your living space becomes all of 8 by 8 feet, probably less than that, and you're sharing it with four others, and you're surrounded by hundreds and thousands of other people who share the same sort of conditions, and you survive based on what you bring. And it's 100 degrees. Well, it was like high to mid 90s, but so it's a very inhospitable environment. And as we're preparing to go and getting supplies, it was revealed that the person I didn't know would be providing food, essentially meals for us, that in cooking, and like he's a good cook and stuff. So it's like, oh no, what am I bringing to the table? Like, what are we? And so it reminded me of the movie Triangle of Sadness. I'm not sure exactly why, but it just felt like, okay, I'm entering a scenario where we're gonna be stranded, and what do I have to offer, right? And so of course, I shared this thought with my group, and luckily they had all seen it. And so we throughout the entire week, we were kind of these like little microcosm jokes about like Triangle of Sadness and how we're in this environment where it's inhospitable and all these kinds of things. Well, this is gonna come back later. It's important. But right, so we get there, and I don't know if you guys have been had read any of the news about Coachella, but well, the first weekend, there's 2 weekends, okay, right,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
separated by a week. The first weekend, Frank Ocean, both, I guess, Frank Ocean was scheduled to be the headliner for the final night, Sunday night. But on the first weekend, some sort of catastrophe happened, which is still yet unclear, where he only kind of half performed. Like, if you read something, some reports will say he injured his ankle. But anyway, his final epic, he's the closer for the entire festival. He was supposed to have had this huge ice skating rink, again, in the middle of 100-degree weather in the desert. But anyway, a huge ice skating rink with over 100 ice skaters. So it was going to be this bombastic thing, and like, whatever. But anyway, during the event, like, he only like performed like half his set, and there was no ice skaters, and the whole thing kind of fell apart. Anyway, you could watch YouTube videos and try to explain it. No one really knows the full answer. But anyway, so people were very much questioning what's going to happen on weekend 2, which is where I held my ticket for. And I think, I'm trying to remember the timeline here, but at some point Frank Ocean drops out, and no one knows what they're going to do, because it's not like they can just end the festival early, right? Like, people are going to be really mad. They paid a lot of money to go to this thing. So we're there on the fairgrounds, and I think it's not until, I want to say, Friday night, like 2 nights before, that they announced that they got some people to fill in. And One, they brought, because Blink 182 was sort of a surprise show up on the first weekend, so people predicted, oh, they'll get them back, and of course they did, and they got a full set this time on the biggest stage, which was fantastic. That I got to see Blink 182 on the biggest stage they've ever played, and they filled the sound way better than I would have given them credit for, because I did watch the live stream weekend one, and I thought it was okay. For Blink, that is.
Yeah.
But man, being there and having them fill that sound was on that stage was amazing. Anyway, so I'm getting to the part where they're going to fill. They still haven't announced what they're gonna do. So they then announced that they got essentially 3 people to come headline the final act, and it's Fred again, Fortet, and Skrillex. And those names may or may not mean anything to you, but they're pretty big names in the sort of the EDM world. And what's crazy about this, well, kind of crazy, is that, so I mentioned Triangle of Sadness has kind of been, for me at least, and the others, but like kind of a running joke. Well, Mario had been trying to, and had got me into Fred again via, well, he's into music and stuff, so we share music, but Fredigan was one of these artists. And Fredigan, the way I became aware of him was through Triangle of Sadness. His song, We Lost Dancing, is the closing song of the movie.
When he's like running through at the very last
exactly.
Shot.
Right. And you can probably just imagine that scene right now, because that music just it hits perfectly in that moment. It feels good. And so it just was this crazy thing where, like, it's not that big of a coincidence, but it was still like this interesting thing where it's like, oh my gosh, this like came all about. And it was a big moment, I think, we'll say, for Mario, because he was super into him, and it was completely unknown that those guys would show up. And they're all big names, so it's really great. And what's kind of cool, if you watch the streams, like the recorded recordings, as they record all the shows of that final act, where the 3 were performing, you can see our group very visibly, because we sort of had been watching the news and figuring things out, and kind of watching them erecting the fairgrounds for, like, remember there was that huge ice skating rink in the middle. So we figured out they would, instead of performing on the main stage, they would be performing on this weird island in the middle of the whole polo field. So we got this primo spot, like, right up front, whereas everyone else, not everyone else, of course, there's over 100,000 people, but people were arriving early, were trying to get right up front, which I'm sure maybe some of them were upset by this. But anyway, we were clever enough to do this, and so we were bam right there. So anyway, it was kind of like this, and that final act was just super amazing. It was awesome. Everyone's dancing over, like I said, the entire polo field, over 100,000 people all together dancing and going crazy. So it was a lot of fun. And I did survive. Despite the Triangle of Sadness.
Well, also, I mean, you kind of talked about this when you said the other guy was the cook, but did you end up deciding on what food to bring to hand out to people?
I did. Oh, that's right.
Was it the big tub of yogurt that Sean suggested?
Yeah.
Nah, you know what? It was a regret. Next year, if I go next year, we'll do the big tub of yogurt. But I did have so I had this. I got this little pouch that had like M&M branding on it from Mario, from a friend of his, and he's like, okay, you have to have a little pouch or something, a fanny pack or a backpack or something to carry junk. So I put a bunch of like water and snacks in there. So I said, oh, I'll be like the M&M guy, and I'll carry around little tubes of mini M&Ms. And so if people ever ask me about my little satchel, I'll hand them a tube of M&Ms, and they'll be like, oh, the M&M guy. Anyway, that never happened.
Oh man,
but
man.
No, it did actually happen once on the final day, where like some guy was like, he was like, oh man, I'm hungry. And like, boom, here you go. But what ended up happening anyway, at the end of the day, I would regroup with people and say, oh, how'd you do, Ryan? Any M&Ms handout? Like, no. So I would just give it to them, which they were very appreciative of. So,
I mean, how many did you have?
I brought 3 with me every day.
3 individual M&Ms?
Yes.
But
they didn't melt, so
it was
melt in your mouth, not in your hand.
New Year's, I want to say 2008 or 9. We all went to Vegas, and you were the cookie guy.
Oh, that's right. I was the cookie
Yeah,
guy, and I gave him out of my top
Yeah,
hat.
we went to the buffet at the Mirage, the New Year's Eve
Mm-hmm.
dinner buffet, and they were giving out New Year's tiaras and New Year's top hats, made of cardboard. And I remember we went to the dessert bar, and you found that the mandrake root
The mandrake
that
root we hid in the chocolate
put
sauce.
in the bowl of chocolate sauce, and then for no reason. And then they had at the buffet line those. They were like Mrs. Fields cookies, like the big giant pancake-sized chocolate chip cookies. And so we filled one of the cardboard top hats with cookies, just like entirely like way more than we were supposed to have. And then walking around on the strip for New Year's, we'd meet people, and Ryan would give them a cookie. And remember that one guy? He was like, "Hey, everybody, this guy's got cookies." And
Yeah, I remember that guy.
Yeah, you remember that guy? I don't remember that guy.
Yeah.
I have video footage somewhere on one of my hard drives from that night, and that guy like doing that.
Oh, it would be great to hear that guy's voice.
I have it somewhere. I have to look for it, but I know I have footage of it.
Man, you should see if you can capture that audio and then put it as a bumper in our podcast.
Okay. Yeah.
Or integrate it into the intro somehow. Classic YumChunks quote. That guy.
Yeah, that's true.
It'll be the only one in the bumper. This guy's got cookies. YumChunks podcast. After the credits. YumChunks podcast.
Oh man, that'd be great. Well, anyway, yeah. So it was a great time. I just want to maybe highlight some artists that I saw that were great and fun. There's a million, so can't mention them all, and I definitely saw more than I can remember. But yeah. So let's see. I saw Wet Leg. I saw Blondie. I already mentioned Blink. Caliucci. Metro Boomin. Actually, I didn't see Metro Boomin because I was seeing someone else, but he was there. Relevant for the movie we're covering. I saw Labyrinth, Poigenius, Blackpink, Chromeo, Bad Bunny, Rosalia. One person I want to especially highlight is Diljit Dosanjh. He is the first Punjabi performer to ever perform at Coachella, and he was recommended to me by a coworker, and he was amazing. He was super good. He was awesome. He just like super bombastic show. Yeah, he's good. Look him up. Let's see. Linda's were a huge highlight for me. Probably the best performer overall of the entire thing was the Gorillas. He was just super amazing. The big thing this year and previous years, I suppose, it was just guests. That's like the new thing. Oh, you didn't have 12 guests come out on stage during your performance? Psh, what are you even doing at Coachella? Oh, yeah, and speaking of reasons to go to Coachella, I had to mention that you can see me on recordings of the final act, because the only reason to go to Coachella is to prove that you went to Coachella. So I think I've hit the top marks on that regard. I also saw Bjork, although what's interesting is that like it's interesting to be surrounded by like 100,000 people yet still be completely alone. I was like the only one in the audience was like, oh, I guess no one else cares about Bjork because everyone's just talking the entire time. It does sort of feel like Comic-Con in the idea that like you might be going to a show or to this place as is the person next to you and the person next to them, but they might be here for the person after the person you're seeing.
Oh yeah.
So it kind of all the things that come with that. But great time. I just wanted to share a little bit about my experience. That's all the chunks we got for now.
Great. Sounds like you had a good time. Glad that you're alive still. I'm surprised.
That's the bonus.
I'm real surprised. One of these days. Well,
it's
Is
like
that a threat? Are you threatening him?
It's like getting to have your cake and eating it too.
I just know that
Unless you have two cakes.
Right. Yeah, Spider-Verse. Okay. Speaking of, we're gonna talk about Spider-Verse now. Spoilers for Spider-Verse the second, Spider-Verse the first, all things Spider-Man, probably all things Marvel.
Probably all things.
And probably all things.
Spoilers for everything.
Spoilers from here on out. And who's recapping this thing?
I'm doing this.
Sean, do this one.
All right, let's do this one last time.
No, I get it. It just wasn't funny.
I know. It didn't have to be funny. It's just a reference. References aren't funny. They're just automatically good. If you say
Right.
something that's from something, that means
Right,
you're
because then my
good.
brain says, "Oh, I know that thing. I'm smart.
Exactly.
I'm good because I know thing."
I recognize the thing that we're here to talk about. Whoa, nice. Anyways, so we actually start with a little bit of Spider-Gwen's backstory. She is in her universe, and some crazy stuff happens where some vulture character, seemingly from another universe, attacks, and she stops him with the help of some other spider people. It is Spider Jesse Drew and Miguel O'Hara, who are kind of, I guess, part of like some sort of multi-dimensional spider squad that they help her take down this vulture. In the meantime, though, she kind of confronts her dad, who is a police detective who's been hunting for Spider-Man because in her universe, he thinks Spider-Woman thinks Spider-Woman killed Peter Parker, when she really didn't kill him. It was, there was a whole Harry Osborn kind of situation, but with Peter Parker in this universe. And she tells him who she is, and he wants to arrest her, doesn't accept her, and so she flees to the Spider-Verse to kind of be part of the Spider Squad. That's all just the intro. Now we cut to jump to the actual movie, and we're with Miles Morales in Brooklyn in his universe. He's just, busy being a Spider-Man and a teen, trying to deal with all these things and juggle it. Classic Spider-Man kind of stuff. He's trying to get into colleges, so he has applications and interviews that he has to make. His parents are worried about him. They don't think he's focused enough. So as he's on the way to a college interview, he is attacked, or he runs into this criminal called the Spot, who kind of has portals on his body and could jump through portals. And the Spot is kind of obsessed with Miles because the Spot thinks he's my nemesis. I'm your nemesis. We're destined to fight. And Miles does not even know who this guy is or cares. So he stops him on the way to the interview, or prevents him from robbing the ATM. I think he was trying to rob. As he's doing that, though, the Spot is able to go inside himself. He goes inside himself, and that allows him to kind of weirdly jump between universes and multiverses. So Miles deals with parents and family stuff and coming of age, and he's also, as Spider-Man, working with his dad, who his dad doesn't know who he is, but they're kind of on a somewhat stable, mutual respect relationship where the cops are working with Spider-Man. And then Spider-Gwen shows up, and Miles is like, "What? You're here? I thought we weren't going to be able to get in, how are you able to jump universes?" And she's kind of playing a little coy, but they're obviously very happy to see each other. And she's like, I'm just happy to see you, but I got to go. And Spider-Man's like, Miles is like, okay, but he follows her, and he learns that she has kind of been not telling him the whole truth, and that she's not supposed to be talking to him, and that in general, all the other universes, all the other Spider-Men in all the universes are not allowed or should not be interacting with Miles at all for some reason. So he follows her through her portal back to the whatever Spider-Verse she's going to, and he comes to Spider Central, which is the beating heart of the multiverse, which is where all the Spider-Men congregate and team up and go on missions. And so there's literally hundreds and hundreds and thousands of Spider-Man, and they're all references to things and cameos and anything and everything Spider-Man, or maybe not even Spider-Man, are there, and it's crazy. And he meets the head of them, who is Oscar Isaacs, who is Miguel O'Hara. And he's like, "Look, you're not supposed to be here. You cannot be part of this. You got to go back. You got to go back to your universe." And what? No, I could help. Let me just help. And so I think they go on a brief little mission, even though that Spider-Man's not supposed to be there. Oh, did I do something out of order? Maybe. I think no. Well, so they go and help this other Spider-Verse, which is the Mumbattan, which is Indian New York. New York, Manhattan, but if it was Mumbai. So it's insanely crazy, and they help the Spider-Man in that universe, and Miles is there to help, and by helping, he actually prevents Paviter Prabhakar, who is the Spider-Man in that universe. They prevent his family, like his father or his girlfriend and his girlfriend's father from dying, which, unbeknownst to Miles, is a pivotal canon event in this Spider-Man's life. And that is necessary for all Spider-Man. So when that happens, that's a big no-no, and they get back to the central headquarters of Spider-Verse, and Miguel O'Hara's like, you messed up big time. This is supposed to happen. This person was supposed to die. If this person doesn't die, then Spider-Man is not who that Spider-Man's supposed to be. You can't save everyone. Someone's supposed to die. And Miles is like, what? But no, we could write our own story. And in the meantime, they're like, by the way, your dad was just promoted to captain, and captain of the New York Police Department is often the one who dies. In a lot of all these other Spider-Men's lives, that is what is kind of their big trauma that creates them. And Miles realizes, like, oh no, my dad is a danger. He might be dying. I need to go back and save him. And they're like, no, you can't go back, because that might be the canon event. That might be important to make you, for your life. So we can't allow you to go back. We're going to hold you here. And he's like, what? No, I'm not doing that. So there's this crazy escape chase sequence where hundreds and thousands of Spider-Man are chasing Miles as he's trying to get back to his home universe to save his father. And he does. He gets away. He slips through the Spider-Verse. He gets back to his home. And as he kind of goes back to his apartment, he's like, Mom, I got to see Dad or whatever. And, oh, by the way, I got to tell you something. I'm Spider-Man. And she's like, what? I don't, what are you talking about? I don't even know what you're... And he realizes that he is not back in his home universe, because in the current universe, his dad is already dead. His uncle, who died in the previous film, is not dead. He's still alive. And he realized that why he's in this universe is the spider who bit him is from this universe. The spider that originally bit him was not part of the universe that, he's from. And he was never supposed to be a Spider-Man. That was not supposed to happen. He is not supposed to be a Spider-Man. And that's why all the Spider-Verses and Miguel O'Hara did not want anything to do with Miles Morales, because he doesn't belong. He's not supposed to be one of them. But in the meantime, right when he realizes this, his uncle, who is the Prowler, basically realizes something is up, kidnaps him, and holds him. And right as he kind of Miles is telling him, like, look, I'm not supposed to be here, he reveals that in this alternate universe, it's not actually his uncle who's the Prowler, it's the alternate version of himself, who's like an evil Miles Morales, who is holding him. And in the meantime, all of his Spider friends, Spider-Gwen and the, schlubby Spider-Man from the previous film, realize they need to go help him. So they try to jump into the universe. And then we cut to credits, because that's the end of this movie, because it's not a movie. It's a part one of two parts of a movie. And we got to wait a whole year to see the second half of this story. Or I think it's next year that comes out. And were there post-credit scenes? I don't know. I'm sure there were.
No, but there was the end where Gwen's like, we're going to be the team that saves Miles. And they bring back...
And it's all our friends from the Into the Spider-Verse, which is the Spider-Pig and Anime Girl and Nick Cage.
Yeah.
Is he there? He was there.
And Spider-Punk was there too. And
Spider-Punk. Dobie.
Indian Spider-Man was there too, I think. Yeah. So...
Dobie?
What did I say? Sorry, not Dobie. Dobie is Harry Potter.
I mean, I guess he is.
Dobie is Harry Potter.
Sorry, Hobie.
Dobie is nothing.
Dobie is nothing. Hobie is the punk, anarchist Spider-Man in this universe. There's a lot of characters I didn't mention, but he's prevalent, featured prominently in this movie. I think that's it. I got through it. I think it was pretty, hopefully you followed that. But yeah, there's across the Spider-Verse. Find your opinions and tell them to me.
Gosh, where do we start? I mean,
yeah, it's there's a lot.
It's a lot. I mean, that's my opinion.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fact. That is a fact.
Yeah, I guess. So I didn't. Yeah. That's not an opinion then. Damn. Okay. Yeah, is good. I like Spider Across the Verse 2 is good. And yeah, we'll expand on that momentarily. Ryan,
Also good, like me. Yeah, no, I loved it. I did see it twice, in part because I missed like the first 5 or so, maybe even
Okay.
10 minutes. But yeah, loved it the second time. Matt, you just said there was a lot. Yes, there was a lot, but I definitely helped on the second viewing. I just kind of like actually your brain is able to process what is flashing in front of you at a million miles per hour. And that made me appreciate it more because you could notice more detail, more just kind of the way they set things up. Get to appreciate the art styling more, all those wonderful, yummy, delicious things that the movie has to offer. So yeah. What about you, Sean?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was crazy and great. Yeah, I loved it. I really did want to watch it a second time, but I haven't been able to yet. Maybe I will catch it again in the theaters. But and I'm curious. Well, we'll get into some questions on like if things maybe make more sense or clear, which we'll get into maybe later. But overall, yeah, it's kind of funny too, coming right after The Little Mermaid, which we were all general pretty positive with, like, an asterisk on that film. But just like a film like this, where it's just like, oh my God, yes, it's like a punch in the face, a dive into like freezing water and being burned alive at the same time, of just like, yes, senses, like movie and an experience, something. Yeah. It's not just like the boring milquetoast, like, let's not do anything to make people any way, like excited or get people's blood pressure up. Like, no, this is just like, we're gonna give you a heart attack and that's what we want to do. Like, and
I mean, in a word, it was engaging, which is what a lot of movies yes. like Little Mermaid are like. I went off on my tangent about how I thought Little Mermaid, the live action, was probably inspired by Once on This Island. And reach or not, that's me trying to engage with the material. And I didn't have to try here because it didn't give me a choice, is the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it did not.
It grabs you and shakes you around for 2.5 hours, and, whether you want it to or not. And it's a lot to grapple, and I only saw it the one time, but, my brain was so frenzied through most of the movie, especially that third act, that by the end of it, and it's done, and it says to be continued, and I'm like, okay, I'm glad, because I need to process what I just saw. I need to put the pieces together, both like emotionally and also logically, because, the whole universe mix-up thing at the end with the spider and whatnot, I was like, wait, what? Okay, hang on, what? Mm-hmm. And I had to take a little while to process it on the drive home and in that evening to figure out what exactly all the, everything that happened. But it's complex, and it's entertaining. It's engaging the entire way through. And
yeah. So a film that, other than the first Into the Spider-Verse, but this, like, it's a film that is unapologetically not for everyone. And by that, I don't mean that, like, I would like to believe that everyone should watch this and hopefully get something out of it. I think there is that possibility, but they are not trying to cater to every demographic. Your grandma, they don't care if your grandma likes this movie. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Like, this
yes,
is not
absolutely.
And it's so awesome. It's like, they have a point of view. It's a movie that has a message, a point of view, a directed audience. It reminds me of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. When I saw that kind of for the first time, it's like, a movie that's like, yes, this was made by our generation, for our generation. And, they don't care if, like, someone in the matinee showing on Sunday afternoon and their family, like, that's not, they don't want, they're okay if they like it, sure, that's great, but that's not, they're not trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator demographic. And it's so just like refreshing when that happens.
Well, so many of these movies they just kind of feel like they're made by a committee, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's just a bunch of suits sitting in a room that say, okay, well, we have to meet all these requirements when we're telling this story. We have to make sure that mom's happy and dad's happy and little sister's happy, and and fulfill those kind of check boxes or whatever, and kind of make sure it's not too wild or crazy, and make sure it lacks any sort of vision. Well, yeah, and no, and so this movie is, and I think and hope, Sean, like you were saying, that is what makes it succeed, is that people do flock to it for those reasons.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's weirdly kind of like it kind of not paradoxical, but what is the word? Like, yeah, when by trying to make it appeal to everyone, it actually really appeals to no one, right? Whereas if you do have a directive, you are going to draw a much bigger audience than you maybe even realize. And I think also too is, I mean, whatever, we all love the Marvel movies by and large. Those are all awesome. We are all, go listen to half our episodes and you see, hear how much we generally like them. But, to their criticism, I guess, there is that element to those movies where they are very, the edges are sanded down. They do have an appeal. Like, how can we maximize appeal on this? And I think a big part of that is to distance themselves from the comic book, and not necessarily the story or characters, but just the literal comic bookness of being a comic book. And how is it we're 20 years into the comic book movie, whatever, renaissance or birth or whatever it is, and there has been 2 movies maybe that are clearly like ripped from the pages almost literally. Like, right, there was this, Into the Spider-Verse, and whatever, go hand in hand, and what, like, Ang Lee's Hulk, right? Other than that, none of them seem to care or even want to acknowledge the existence of comic books as a medium. They just like, oh, yeah, we'll take these characters and we'll just like and put it into the standard cookie cutter film. Well,
I think it's a matter of like, in adapting it, they're doing it like what's like the opposite of literally adapting something, where we're adapting it literally to the medium. In other words, we're going to tell this story as a movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, all the ways that a movie needs to be a movie, as opposed to let's think about how we should adapt this different kind of medium into this medium.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, and I'm not saying even that other way is wrong per se, right? Like, I mean, obviously there's credit to that, and that obviously does and can work. But it's just like, after everything, what have we had? Like, dozens, maybe over 100, like, actual comic book adaptations, and none of them have tried to like push and pull and break kind of ideas of what the medium and format could look like, and the breaking the fourth wall, and just like literally use, like, it reminds me, for good reason, the Lego movie. It was just like, oh yes, this is a Lego movie, not just because they took Lego and forced it into a movie. It's like, oh, it's literally Lego. It's literally how they're playing with Legos. When you watch that movie, it's like you're playing with Legos. When you watch this movie, it's like you're reading a comic book. I mean that in the literal sense, and that there's cells, and there's frames, and there's text on screen, and there's the same types of language that a comic book uses.
And there's texture to...
Yes, there's texture to the animation, to everything.
I guess it's, what you're saying is, like, it's previous comic book adaptations, like the X-Men series, most of the MCU, it's taking the stories of comic books and adapting them into the medium in the way that's most palatable for people who are used to watching action movies. Yes. Whereas this is a celebration of comics in the way that the Lego movie is a celebration of Legos and so forth. And so that it embraces some of those things that you wouldn't typically find in movies. And for that, it brings us a movie that's really interesting and not like, most others. And that's how you advance a medium, is by doing things that you're not used to it doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually really well stated. I think in so doing as well, like, because it was this content in this medium, I think just on its own right, never mind it being this excellent adaptation, as you guys are saying, but it pushes animation as a medium on its own to its full potential. Like, I'm not even sure I can think of another just straight up animated movie that is so visually interesting, risk-taking, fascinating to look at every single frame and just go, oh my gosh, they're doing so much here through visual storytelling and just being as creative as you possibly could be. This, like, I'm sure the people who animated this film, I can I know because I can see the love and the care and the expression of every frame, how probably satisfied they were to be working on this.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'd read that final chase scene with all the Spider-Mans took 4 years to animate, and like,
Oh my God.
I believe it. But yeah, it's everything that you just said about this movie, about like how groundbreaking the animation is and how you could see all that. I thought that about the first movie, and I also thought, like, I don't know where they could go from here. I was excited for this one, for the sequel, but I was also kind of like feeling like we were going to get more of the same. But this one almost makes the first one feel quaint.
No, you're absolutely right. I didn't even think about it, but now that you say that, it kind of, you're right. It does feel safe by comparison. Because I remember seeing that first one and being blown away in the same way that I just expressed. Like,
right. Well, you have to think. I mean, also, if I'm not mistaken, the first Spider-Verse movie was the first mainstream Marvel movie to tackle multiverse as a story concept. It introduced mass audiences to the concept of a comic book multiverse. And since then, we've had a whole lot of that. So,
Yes.
I feel like story-wise, that was a big deal. And also, tonally, the story was a little bit more lighthearted because you had Nicolas Cage goofing around, you had Spider-Pig as John Mulaney, and in this one, the stakes are raised. So the story for the first one now feels quaint by comparison, because there's far fewer characters and the story's a lot more straightforward. And also the animation does too, because this one takes everything that we already know from the first one and kicks it up several notches. We're seeing every Spider character have its own distinct style of animation, and they're all existing in the same frame, and as the action scenes are happening, those different styles of animation are smashing against each other and blending and blurring, and it's really a sight to behold. And it's just not something that my brain would have been able to picture back when I saw the first one as this like next level, and now I'm at the point where we know that a sequel's coming out in a year from now, and I'm kind of at the same point as I was in the first one. I'm like, are they going to do it again, or like, and by it I mean raise the bar, or is it, because they're in production at the same time, just going to be a continuation of what we, this one?
I think it'll be that. I mean, and not that it's a bad thing, but as you say, they were in production at the same time, and I think originally, even, I don't exactly know how production went, but they were supposed to be like one movie split into two kind of thing, and that's why the movie kind of feels the way it does in terms of when it ends. So I hope they blow my mind again, but I'm expecting just more at this level, which will still be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think considering kind of those production aspects, I'm more expecting, at least visually, to be at this level with maybe some things that are gonna like kind of go above and beyond, but in general be very much very similar to this one. But what I'm hoping and what I'm expecting is that for the story and for like some of what they're doing, especially with the multiverse, and there's a lot of stuff that's very meta in this, and that to be much more like, oh my god, they did that in this movie, that kind of thing. Because I think even at the time, if they wrote this or they conceived of this as a singular piece, I think even knowing that, I could see the second half and the climax and the fulfillment of what this is being very groundbreaking. So I think that still might be something that is going to be like crazy, and I hope, but I agree, the visual style, like I partially just because I don't know what else, like I don't know if it's like, how can I can't imagine anything more insane. So I don't know what they could do.
But I couldn't when I saw the first one either.
Yeah, exactly.
But
so maybe that's
I agree with you. I think if we're raising any bars in the third one, I think it's going to be story, because this one ended, if I were to have a major criticism of this movie, it is that it just ends. Maeve compared it to Dune in that respect. Like, except for Dune ended 30 seconds after I started getting interested in the movie's plot. But this one, was interesting from beginning to end. But yeah, structurally, it is very much half a movie. And that is honestly, that's it. I can't think of anything else to criticize about this movie.
Yeah, I had the same note, and I also compared it to Dune in that regard. I do have some other like they're more like questions, and I think I need to wait till part 2 before I'm satisfied with those questions, with the answers to those questions. I mean, obviously this is a two-parter. I'm not going to get all the answers, but yeah, I don't know. Do you guys want to kind of get into?
I
Yeah.
do.
So
some of
are
the-
you kind of talking about plot kind of stuff specifically?
Yeah.
Because that was it's, and I don't even want to like approach this purely as like us nitpicking or criticizing it, but
Right.
they're definitely, and it kind of maybe goes into the realm of like, I don't know if it's questions we shouldn't be asking, or I don't know how to frame it, but so I guess the biggest thing to me is all the stuff with canon, and if you think about some of
Yeah.
these things, how it doesn't really either doesn't make sense, or they're aware of it and it's going to be addressed in the next movie, or it's not
Right.
really about that so much anyway. So it's just kind of like, yeah, obviously this it's a causality loop paradoxical thing that ultimately doesn't make sense because it's a fictional sci-fi thing, and that never makes sense when you break it down far enough.
I suppose I'm leaning into the middle option.
I hope so too. Yeah.
In that, because I think they bring up these sort of plot points often enough in the movie that I think they want us to start noodling over them,
Yeah.
at least to some degree, and especially since the big twist,
Yeah.
we'll call it a twist, at the end is reliant on our understanding of how the multiverse works. I mean, in so much that there's multiple universes.
Well, let's just articulate. So I think the biggest, specifically the question is, okay, so his dad has to die for that to, like, that's his canon event, or that's what they're alluding to. That's one of the big things. But if he was never supposed to be Spider-Man to begin with, why does it matter that his dad dies? Also, they imply that his uncle dying was his canon event. So why does, so he has two canon events? And then also, if he was not he saved the Indian Spider-Man's family from dying, and so there's no canon event that happened in that, but him, or I've already lost the thread a little bit here.
Like if he existing is a non-canon event,
yeah,
why isn't his whole universe and potentially Earth 42 just destroyed? Or whatever happens if canon event is broken.
This is the kind of stuff that I walked away from the theater a little like hazy on, and I think I have I did some reading, and I feel like I have a better understanding of that kind of stuff. It's like, the spider that bit Miles was from Earth 42 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So because it was from that universe, the Spider-Man that it created is that universe's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Which is why
Miles.
Miles. Miles he's not the Spider-Man of his own universe. Because if you recall, in the first movie, that universe already has a Spider-Man who dies at the beginning of the first movie.
That's right. I mean, Chris Pine.
Yeah, Pine.
Chris is Miles. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So that universe already has a Spider-Man. So Miles isn't supposed to be the Spider-Man of that universe. He has retroactively become the Spider-Man of Earth 42. So, okay, right. So far so good, right? In Earth 42, his dad dying is supposed to be the canon event. But is it though? Because if the spider didn't get transported, would it have bitten that Miles or somebody else? That's something that we don't know. But the Miles that we know, the main Miles, if he was not supposed to be Spider-Man, then his canon event may or may not be a canon event, but as you said, it was already his uncle, the Prowler, dying. So things kind of, they can make sense, is what I'm saying.
Yes, I agree, and I'm hoping the next film will answer those. But here's the thing. I'm kind of almost leaning into like a fourth option. And this fourth option is around, there's something we are not being told by Miguel. I mean, there's probably a lot of things he's not telling us.
Yeah, sure.
But his explanation for why these kind of events, A, need to exist, and B, destroy or destabilize, we'll say, the universe if they're not executed, we're not really given a full explanation for that.
No.
Yeah.
the explanation we're given is very fuzzy, and then someone else, I can't remember who, questions him about
Is
that.
it like the girl on the computer? What's her?
It's either the
like-
girl on the computer or it's just Gwen. It's one of the two,
Okay,
and I can't
yeah.
remember now. I should know because I just saw it again. But it's one of them two, and like, do you really know what happens when this happens? And then he, of course, is defensive and says, yes, because blah blah blah, my backstory. So that's kind of, I'm hoping there's something with that. In addition, this is a prediction we're getting into here, that Miguel is a foil for our Spider-Man, Miles, because he himself is also not supposed to be Spider-Man. And my prediction for that is he is vampiric. They mentioned that I think twice in the movie, and I noticed this a lot more the second time. In fact, in the opening sequence where he jumps into the Gwen's universe to help him, he's about to bite the Vulture's neck.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't notice that the first time because I missed it. But yeah, he's about to bite this guy's neck with some fangs. And he gets interrupted and doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So I think he killed the Spider-Man from his universe and absorbed his powers.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
yeah. So,
well, I think that
Yeah.
I think the details that you noticed are important.
Yeah,
and,
I agree.
And I think that you made a good case for why that's what's going to happen. And I think there's a good chance that that is what will happen. But whether it is or not, I think that those details that you noticed that I didn't are there intentionally. So that's exciting. Good job.
yes.
I mean, it makes me want to, for sure. I mean, I already really want to see it. All those details that I think could and probably are relevant for characters and potentially plot. But then obviously they're just like, oh, look, no, I didn't notice that Spider-Man in the background.
Yeah.
But then also just like, so the Peter or the whatever, the Indian Spider-Man, like, so his canon event hadn't happened yet, but he was in the Spider Squad, you know, like those kind of things. Like, why was he already part of the Spider?
Yeah.
If his canon event hadn't happened yet.
Yeah,
Stuff
those
like
kinds
that.
of
There's a
questions,
couple of
because
those
also how does
questions,
like how does time work? Like, are they
yeah.
can they jump back? Are they all on the same timeline? Like, in terms of, I don't know. Those are maybe questions I shouldn't be asking. I think that's maybe, you know, what's fairground, what isn't fairground in terms of what we can ask. But
Right.
I
mean,
Yeah.
there's okay. So in this movie, they reference the Raimi movies because we see characters from the Raimi movies. They also show Donald Glover as Prowler, which that's fun.
Right.
Okay,
Yes,
so
it was.
and they do linger on him, like any, you know, and they even come back to him. There's the other shot with him, like it definitely is and probably is just like a funny reference, but it's like, is he actually going to be?
Are you talking about some Roger Rabbit action? I hope you are.
There was some Roger Rabbit action because he also, the Spot goes into the convenience store from Venom.
Oh yeah, there's the
Yeah, you're
Venom
right.
verse. Yeah.
So
right.
this connects to all the live action.
Also, there's the Andrew Garfield sequence, like you see Andrew Garfield.
My point being that in Spider-Man No Way Home, the other big multiverse Spider-Man movie, the Spider-Men from the Raimi-verse and the Garfield-verse come to this one where Spider-Man, Tom Holland, is still young and Aunt May hasn't died yet and blah, 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 blah. He is not the same age. They are older versions of those characters.
Yeah.
So to answer your question earlier, how does time work? Yeah, I don't think that there's rigid rules. I don't think that they exist like in the same timeline.
In sequence
same,
or
like,
whatever.
It's not like
the
the same. The canon event happens at the
they
same
can't
time
because the live action movies already showed us that that's not true. And this movie showed us that they are in the same universe.
Although they did say that they have some sort of computer models that can sort of predict the future, but I agree with you in general. Yeah.
I think if you tried to bound it by too many rigid rules like that, then the whole thing is going to fall apart. And it's already multiverse as a story concept is already a big ask.
That's what I meant when I was saying this. Like, if you start breaking down any sci-fi thing, eventually something's not going to make sense, and so it's just like walking the line for something as bombastically insane as a multiverse thing in a comic book franchise, like in, you know, there's a layer or there's a level where like, it's the multiverse. Obviously, it's not going to make sense.
Well, but it's not the multiverse, right? Or is it? Because it's the Spider-Verse, And it's like everything is contingent
Well,
upon Spider-Man.
Is it like so? That is a question just in general. Is this the same shared multiverse as No Way Home and as Doctor Strange and you know what I mean? Like,
Has
are
to
we
be.
Don't
assuming?
know.
It has to be.
Because according to this, I mean, I would like to say yes, just because
I would say yes. Yeah.
But in this movie, then most universes are animated. There's very few live action universes. Most of existence.
Does Lego count as live action or animated?
It's its own thing.
Also, did you hear that they like it was a 14-year-old who they got like
Yeah.
to animate that? It was like someone who made YouTube videos and they loved it and they reached out to him and he actually animated that for like this multi-million-dollar.
Isn't that cool? I love hearing
insane.
that. Again, just kind of shows like the love put into like a movie like this. It just I love hearing those stories.
And even just like the risk taking, right? Like, can you imagine a committee of? I mean, whatever. I'm sure it did. It had to. It's Sony to some degree be approved, but it just feels like no board of like executives are going to approve that. It just feels like it's so punk rock. That's awesome.
We're just gonna do it.
Spider-Punk.
Yeah, speaking of punk rock, that Hobie is great. The characters all like as much as I loved all the characters from Into the Spider-Verse, and I was like, oh, we don't get Nick Cage, and we don't get as much as Jake Johnson and stuff. All the new characters I loved. Like they were awesome.
They were so good. Like I love that we got more Gwen just in general.
Yes. Yeah.
But then that Hobie character, oh my gosh! Like well, one of the things something I
Hobie.
really glad I saw it second Hobie, is that I could not understand what he was saying. So the second time I was like, oh, okay, now I understand.
Well, did you hear that they released a new print to theaters that had improved audio?
Yeah, I heard the volume was too low.
Yeah, some of the mixing with some of the dialogue, especially not just him, but like a lot of.
Well, I didn't see it until after the new prints were issued, so I don't know. But
I saw it before, and I definitely there were some times where it was a little like I'm not sure. I didn't really catch that line and stuff. So
yeah, so that helped my further appreciation of his character. Like, man, how are you're even cooler under the mask. I've always been this cool. Like, he was just so cool. Yeah.
He was great. And then Paviter, he was.
He was so good.
That whole world was awesome too.
It was so visually mind blowing. Yeah. Well, it was also one thing I love that not only just we'll take New York and give it a different color palette. Mm-hmm. No, this was I've never seen a city that looked like this on film. It was so vertical. Like the verticality of the city, like it gave this entirely different feel. And when I think about Spider-Man, I'm like, oh no, this is Spider-Man's stomping ground. That he would excel in this world far more than Peter does in New York. Like it's just so cool to think about. I just loved it so much.
And so just small tangent. It's funny. I recently saw Metropolis. They had a screening up in LA. It's on theater. It was awesome. They had like a live organist and stuff. So it was fun to see it like in theaters. I had seen it before, but this is the first time in a theater, obviously, and with live music, blah, blah. And it, if you've seen Metropolis, you know what Metropolis is, but it really like highlighted the crazy visuals of that movie, especially for the time and stuff. Yeah. And there's so much of the visuals of that Manhattan that reminded me of Metropolis, those visuals of like the city skyline and how vertical it is. And there's like, I mean, in that movie, it's like biplanes, so it's kind of funny because it's made in the 20s, but like, so they don't have like flying cars, but there's just like airplanes flying around, and there's like these roads and highways that reminded me of that, or like Coruscant from like, Star Wars, whatever. It's like this so vertical element to things. And I wonder how much that like they're just like borrowing and like taking homage or inspiration from like those types of classics, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, that's I hadn't made that comparison, but just like I like that, and just in addition, that world had just its own unique style, and I loved the Indian Spider-Man. He was, oh my gosh, I love he had those weird little top things. I don't know what it was. Like,
I mean, it's a thing. It's a real thing. Like, I guess they're Indian. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I've seen it before.
Those.
It just was a cool way of just like revisualizing Spider-Man, because they also established that like some Spider-Mans have it embedded in the web shooters, and some they had to make them. And so this guy, he obviously he had to make his own, but he made them as these little devices that were already sort of part of his culture and those kinds of things. It's just so creative and cool.
Yeah, I definitely feel like when we're talking about the visuals earlier, but just like in every element, just they constantly were asking themselves, okay, we cannot just settle and like, oh, this is good enough. Every element of this film, they were just constantly thinking like, how can we make this more imaginative? How can we make this more, I don't know, risky? I don't know if risky is the right word, but just like every element of this has to be imbued with just some oomph. We're not just like, there's no scene, there's no shot, there's no angle, there's no line of dialogue, there's no anything that is just good enough. Like, it's very clear that they were just like, no, everything. We want everything to be at this extreme level.
I was going to save this for later because this is one of my favorite parts, but it perfectly captures what you're saying, Sean. The most quote unquote boring part of this movie is the scene between Gwen and her father near the end where there's talking in the kitchen. Yeah. It's probably the slowest part of the movie, and it's just the most slowly paced dialogue. Yeah. Yet it's the most visually interesting part of the movie for me. I mean, you could probably point at any 5-second part of this movie and say that's the most visually interesting part of the movie. But they gave her father, who's the police guy, I don't even remember his name, but his own animated personality. Every time he's on camera, the color palette changes. It's like these watercolors, and they're a little more pastel-y, and there's like these weird kind of like not quite diagrams, but like geometry going on that's slowly moving and blending, and the colors are changing. And it was, I think for that reason alone, being able to appreciate that scene on a second time and just it was so cool, because honestly it's one of those typical coming of age things. Well, I can't tell my parents the truth, which every Spider-Man has to deal with, and especially in the beginning you're kind of like, okay, come on. But it's so like, I don't even care. It sold me by the end, so whatever, it's all good. But just visually, every time her father's on camera or on the scene is so amazing. Yes, they spent so much time.
There's a lot of visual symbolism in there too. I don't know if you guys have been reading the conversation about it, but the idea of Gwen's character being transcoded. Because all those colors in her universe are the colors of the trans flag, and then her speech to her dad when she's talking about like, I can't share who I am. I don't have the freedom of being the real version of me around you, or you'll disown me. Right. And him being like, oh, I have to stick to my beliefs, and I don't believe what you're doing or who you are is right. And that conflict, I think she even has a trans rights flag on her wall in her room in one scene. So there's a lot of symbolism happening there. And it definitely seems like, it's very, people are arguing whether or not that's intentional or not, but it's very clear. It seems, it hardly even seems like subtext to me.
I mean, for sure. And I think just one more reason to appreciate that sequence.
Yeah, for sure. I think if that is the case, and I like that read for the most part, but I think in something like that, I kind of wish if that was the intention, it didn't need to be subtext, specifically the trans. Like, I think that scene works with or without it, but there's an element where like I don't love the idea of like trying to sleuth out and figure out someone's sexual gender identity. Like I like, if that's what her is, then just make that part of her character. And if it's not important, then she can be trans. But it does. I don't love the idea of us trying to like figure out the clues and piece it together and label someone like,
no,
she's trans.
I agree with that, and there's a lot of that happening. But I think it's more of this character is an analogy and is somebody who people struggling with that can relate to.
Oh, absolutely.
In a way. And I think there's a similar thing going on with Miles at the end. And this is my reading of it. I haven't seen this reading. But you have this movie where you have all these crazy different Spider-Men, spider people. And at the end, you have them saying, no, you are wrong. You don't get to be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that there's definitely, I mean, when Miles, when Miles Morales as a character was created, there was obviously backlash.
Yeah.
The same type of backlash we were talking about with the Little Mermaid live action last episode.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why can't we have a Black Spider-Man? Like, why can we have all of these other crazy ones? Also, you're telling me that Spider-Man as a concept is that's already not too ridiculous for you.
Well,
right?
and I think to that point too, I think there's an element where I don't know if there's a term for this, but a lot of times when you're making art or a film or whatever story that is obviously somewhat topical or having a message with current events and stuff, you kind of paint something else as even more extreme to really give context for how ridiculous it is to be upset with something as silly and stupid as a black Spider-Man or a Puerto Rican Spider-Man or whatever, right? Like
right.
in the even in the context of this film is like you literally have robot Spider-Man,
T-Rex Spider-Man,
animal Spider-Man that like really you're okay with that being somehow a protector of the multiverse, but I'm not okay like that. Like right, it really paints the ridiculous picture of like. Really, you're not okay with the Black Mermaid. You're not okay with the Black Spider-Man. You're okay with everything else. You're okay with a giant galactic guy collecting 5 gems and snapping his fingers and everything falling apart.
Melissa McCarthy turns into a kaiju.
Like that's fine. That's fine, but that's too far when the slight hue on a person's skin for a character is not exactly how you want to see it. It is pretty, I think that is definitely lampshading that element.
I think it's intentional, and if not, I think that reading still works. And I think that
yeah.
both of those readings of those characters, I think they are supposed to be subtextual. I don't think that in the movie Gwen is actually trans, though there's nothing in the movie that says she isn't. But I don't think that she actually is, though. I don't think that Miles Morales, the character, is saying you just don't want me to be Spider-Man because I'm black.
Yes, totally, exactly.
Right.
But those, I do think that the subtexts were intentional in both cases, and I think that's great. I mean, it really,
I agree with that.
It makes the movie even more of this time. It's already, it's you see that, and you also see, the modern music influences, street art influences, and you see influences from all these different things. And I think I think it's really going to create a movie that this will be something that kids now will look at as adults, like we look at Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, like that. This is their version.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. I hope you're right too. Like that's so amazing to me that I'm jealous of them. I don't get to have this Spider-Man. Speaking of music though, the score was so amazing. Oh my god, I loved it so much. It's just like it was so kind of weird and like kind of keeps you off balance a lot of the time. And then it was actiony when it needed to be.
Yeah. I love
awesome.
I love that the bad guy was the guy who got hit with a bagel.
Yeah, because that was one of my favorite moments of the first one.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that on this podcast, where when all the little comic book pow blams spelled out, that one just said bagel.
Yeah.
Also, just in general, like it's funny how that character develops and how like our expectations are even played on with how that character because it does come across in that opening scene, that opening sequence, as just like, oh, he's just kind of a side guy before the big real threat happens, right?
Yeah,
that's a very comic book. I don't know, trope's the right word, but like we've seen that a lot of times in comic books, or comic book movies especially, where there's a little opening sequence of them fighting some no-name villain, and then the real villain comes up, and that's the bulk of the movie. But it ends up being him, and it's just like even like it goes crazy, and just like. I mean, anytime you're dealing with portals in anything, that's just like immediately like awesome. That's that right?
Yeah.
Like okay, win. And then like just like I can't even understand what is. It's like I could just like watch this 6 times just watching the portal sequences.
Yeah.
To like grasp like it's so again it's so imaginative. Like it's not just a simple punch, punch, kick, fight. It's every literal movement in these sequences has to be something that's blowing your mind.
Well, not only is it just not a simple kick, kick, punch thing, it's every scene has many things happening.
Yeah.
So like, Miles isn't just fighting a bad guy. He's eating empanada and fighting a bad guy, and also he's running late for an appointment, so he's trying to like change his clothes, and he's doing all these, like, every scene has multiple things are happening. So there's no such thing as a fight scene in the movie. Really, Peter's just trying to get from point A to point B. He's not actually engaging in combat right now.
But yeah, and then like the way he, like when he kind of finally thinks he has him defeated, it's like he's just holding him. The Spot is just like somehow holding himself by his own arms through the portals. Like it's like,
oh yeah,
right. Like he's like, I can't even explain it or even like understand what I was looking at when I was looking at it. And then also, I don't know if this, I'm pretty sure this was a thing, but like as the film progresses, the Spot feeling less tethered and more just like sporadic and more sketchy and more like I don't know the right word, but like he's
just kind of like
seizure-y. Like the lines are just like blurring,
like hand-drawn sketches.
Yeah,
it's got some like horror movie vibes to it.
Yes,
and it also appropriate because it feels like he's definitely losing his humanity over the course of the film.
For sure.
And the animation reflects that. I love how the animation reflects every like state of mind and state of being and character growth and everything.
And like the environment reflects the emotional state of the person, right? Like you can't do that in live action. That's so cool.
Man, it'd be great like if they had a movie about like creatures that talked under the sea. Instead of just making realistic creatures, they could make them animated. That would be a way better way to tell a crazy cool story about those creatures.
You're a visionary, Sean.
I think we need to stop letting live action The Little Mermaid live rent free in our head, you guys. It's just a live action Disney movie. They're never going to stop making them.
I know. But it's just like, I don't know. Like I said at the beginning, it's just funny how we're doing these episodes right back to back. And I feel like in so many ways it's, I don't know, telling and maybe glean more from this movie than it even, I mean, not that it doesn't deserve everything that we're saying about it, but like I think it even gives more context, like, oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so you guys are talking about the sketchy nature and like almost the horror film vibes. So if you remember, that starts happening when they go into the collider in the Mumbata, the Indian world. And something happens where Spider-Man crosses over with the Spot, and now he can sort of see the future or see what's inside of the Spot. Like they're sort of somehow weirdly crossed over in their brains, or something's going on. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do with that, because I
think Spot has the potential of making the third movie very weird, and I want to see it get really, really weird.
Yeah, so maybe that's how they do kick it up a notch, is by just letting it get super weird with portal stuff in the Spot.
I mean, it's called Beyond the Spider-Verse, and I don't know if that's just the catchy name they came up with or not, but if, we really starting to getting into, like, universes starting to break down and we're in voids and weird pocket dimensions and stuff like that, that could be really fun.
I mean, I wouldn't be against it going, like, super adaptation, where it's just, like, somehow weirdly autobiographical. Like, it doesn't even make sense.
Oh, it's like abstracty? Like,
it's abstracty, and there's, like, layers upon layers where it's, like, Lord and Miller are actual like characters in this movie somehow, or the director is, or like I don't know, like that's what I mean is like I'm not saying I wholeheartedly just for the sake of doing that, but I trust them enough to
basically
integrate those
try to do a She-Hulk, but
yes, absolutely. But I hopefully
but do it well.
Better. I mean, we all generally like She-Hulk, but I had my issues with the end of it, and so hopefully kind of do it better. But something like that, where it's just like beyond, like you said, Chewie. Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I don't care what they do as long as it's good. And I have no reason to believe so far that it won't be.
Yeah.
And quick note as to maybe a strong reason why it was so good is that at the helm is Joaquin Dos Santos, our friend from Avatar.
Our friend.
Yes. We've met him, haven't we?
Have we?
Well, I mean, maybe you guys met him at a convention or something, but I don't.
Oh, really?
I don't remember meeting him.
I don't think he was. He was when we're at Nick Studios.
No.
I don't remember meeting him.
No. At the Comic-Con is what I was
At
referring to.
Comic-Con, maybe. Yeah,
We've seen him on a panel or two.
Or panels. We've seen probably.
Yeah. So that's what I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your friend.
He's our friend.
Your
So basically, our friendship inspired him.
I thought I have like a poster with his signature on it.
It's like,
That's
hey.
proof that he's my friend.
Yeah. Why else would he sign?
Oh yeah, I have that
Yeah.
poster too. I'm looking at it right now. It's up on my wall.
Right? Is the one of Amon, right? Or
Yeah,
Amon, or
I have that.
Amon?
It's right there on my shelf.
Okay. Yeah, it's right behind me as well.
Oh, I guess he's my friend too.
Well,
there you go.
what do you know about that?
What do you know?
Good job, Joaquin. I'm so proud of you.
Wow.
Well, so what about again, only seeing it once and missing like 90% of everything that happened in this film, but the sheer amount of spider people that are in this movie.
It's a lot.
There's a lot, and it's funny how just like that chase sequence is insane, and then it's also funny like which ones they kind of highlight at when the Ben, what's his the broody like who Andy Samberg did the voice.
Yeah, Andy Samberg, Spider-Man.
But like that's a Spider-Man from like I think the 90s. They played in the super emo, edgy, dark,
punky,
punky, who was just constantly brooding and monologuing and stuff. And I love how like self-referential and just kind of poking fun at that is. But I don't know how much of these are from things or how much are original. Like I'm guessing Miguel O'Hara is from something, right?
Yeah, he was original creation, Spider-Man Earth 2099 or something like that.
Okay.
So he does get his own stories and stuff.
Yeah, and obviously, Gwen Stacy and I don't know a lot of the other main guys, but like, is Jesse the other like Miguel's kind of second in command? Jesse, what's her name? The Spider Woman. Is she original?
I think she's original.
Spider-Man
Yeah, I'm looking it all up right now. So yeah, Miguel is from a comics run called Spider-Man 2099.
Okay, yeah.
So that's real, and then Jess Drew. No, she is original. Yeah.
Okay. I liked her a lot though too.
She's cool.
She was great, and I also like that she. I think sometimes those. I was afraid they were going to undermine her character, by which I mean she was going to come across as too motherly and soft, especially by the end of the film, where she was just going to like, "Oh, you're right." I love that she stayed with like, "No, we got to hunt this guy down," and no, Gwen, you can't do this. Like, not that I agree with her. I just I like that was her character, and she didn't become a very, I don't know, I think kind of like blasé, predictable, like, "Oh, you're right. He's just a kid. We should help him out." I don't know. I just appreciated that they kind of kept her this little bit more hard character.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah,
she's good. And Jake Johnson, schlubby Peter Parker is just always great and fun. And he wasn't in a ton, but I loved his role, and baby Spider-Man and stuff was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. So speaking of all the Spider-Mans, and kind of going back to a little bit of what we were saying before, but I want to get you guys' take on. So all the Spider-Mans, spider things, because I guess it's not just people, right? There's spider cars and horses.
And it's Spider Ham, by the way. We were saying Spider Pig. Spider Pig is the Simpsons.
Oh, why didn't that show up?
Yeah. They should. They should.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
would be, see a Spider-Man and Simpsons style.
Spider Pig could be in the background somewhere. We just won't know. It's too many.
Yeah, that's true. That's
true.
a good chance of it.
Yeah, I have to go frame by frame once it's on streaming or DVD. Right. So I wanted to ask you guys. I just had a hard time believing that like Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, or Tom Holland would go along with this plan. Like part of my definition of Spider-Man is that he's an independent and critical thinker. He's not one to go along with the flow.
Well.
So I had that thought too, where like, right, Spider-Man is like everything we know about Spider-Man. Spider-Man is not a henchman, right?
Right.
But by the nature of what this kind of story is doing, and you literally have hundreds and thousands of Spider-Mans chasing after, like they come across as henchmen-y.
Yeah.
And this is a very tempered criticism. I honestly don't
Yeah.
dislike anything about this film so much about it, but it is a thought I had. It was like how are these all Spider-Man? Isn't every Spider-Man like kind of painting his own story to an extent?
Right. And they're all. And granted, we only have a snapshot of like 3 or 4 Spider-Man.
Yes.
So what if every other Spider-Man is a
Yes.
henchman? And it's like, oh, okay, I guess they're actually. We just got the
That's
oddballs.
why they're telling these versions Spider-Man stories, because they
Maybe.
know that is better.
Well,
than that.
Right.
in an infinite multiverse, as
Yeah.
many Spider-Men as we saw in this movie, that's still a small amount compared to infinity. So
That is a good point.
It is kind of one of those things. Like obviously the comparisons or remind me of like Rick and Morty. With
the Citadel,
Rick,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
if Rick is really the smartest man in the universe and he's always just like everything, how is there possibly a society of them and there's people that conform to, like, right? It's like this weird
Right, because
contradiction.
he's the rickest Rick of them all.
Yeah, and so like Miles Morales is the most spidery man of them all, or whatever.
Right.
But
So
it was a thought for sure. It was definitely something.
yeah. Okay. Well, I agree. It wasn't necessarily like a big detriment or anything. It was just kind of like I'm not sure if can buy this. And also just like the idea that they're all, again, just by pattern, all geniuses. Like, wouldn't they all investigate this phenomena and not just leave it up to Miguel? Especially when some of the other Spider-Man people, I can't remember who, did ask Miguel, like, how do you know what happens? Wait, hold on. You've been going along with this plan this whole time and you haven't actually ever asked that question already, much less done your own independent research? Like, Spider-Man is a scientist.
Yeah.
And they would have peer-reviewed and they would have looked at this.
I want to see, like, the Spider-Man scientific publications.
Oh, man, I would love to.
I mean, and to that point, I think, and maybe something that, well, I think it's this, same level of criticism is even beyond the scientific, just questioning is just philosophically, like, he could not, there would be more dissension among the Spider-Man ranks. And I guess we kind of touched on that but like not all of them would be fine with just sacrificing people, like, right? That would not be a unanimous thing in the Spider-Verse. I wouldn't think.
I can't agree more. So
I think those elements, there's a little friction there. There's a little bit of stuff that kind of like, I don't know what the right way to put it is. Like, I don't know if it's like undermining Spider-Man. I don't think that's quite it. But I think I don't know how to articulate it. It just like
I just don't believe it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the best way.
I'm not sure how else to. And again, like that is sort of the premise of this movie. So it's like, well, that's what they want to do. And again, I think there's information being withheld by Miguel. So
yeah, I absolutely
that'll put it to rest. But yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there and see if you guys had similar thoughts.
Yeah, it's just something that I can't put energy into thinking about right now because it's like I'm not going to get an answer, and
it's true.
It's true. And whatever I come up with now is going to be challenged by whatever the third movie does. So it is what it is for now. It's fine. I'm going to take everything at face value, and we're gonna Matrix 2 this situation. we're gonna hope that the third one makes it make sense.
Well, that's not a great comparison.
No.
Well, but I said we're gonna hope that the third one makes everything make sense.
Sure.
Oh, so that's we're Matrix 2ing it. Let's hope we don't Matrix 3 it.
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. And maybe an extension of that, but kind of back to the positive, is just in general, and this is something that I think the first one that did really well, and one of my favorite parts about it, and the extension of that message and kind of the theme of that, like, right, my favorite line, one of my favorite lines was from the first one, is that eventually the suit always fits, whatever, Stan Lee says it to him, or something like that along those lines. It's like, right, we're all heroes. Everyone is Spider-Man. Everyone can be Spider-Man. And the extension of that in this one, and this kind of cool, unique inversion where it's like, yeah, look at what Spider-Man can be. Literally anything you could imagine can be a Spider-Man, right? That's such a powerful, great message, I think. Like, anyone can be but the cool, whatever, twist to that is the one person that's not supposed to be Spider-Man. They are protagonists.
Right.
Like I think like
Yeah.
and obviously that's intent. They're playing on that, and obviously the idea of him not supposed to be Spider-Man is wrong, is a lie. But it's just like, oh, that's a cool inversion where we normally have this destined hero who is supposed to be the hero because blah 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 blah. And in this case, we have like the exact opposite, where everyone else is supposed to be a hero except for our protagonist. Yeah.
No, that's great. I love that.
Yeah, and I think, my reading of that in this one being subtext, I really hope that that's brought to the forefront in the third one.
Yes. Yeah, me too. And I trust them. That's definitely something where I trust the filmmakers enough, because it's very clear to me that is front and center in their mind when they're doing everything in these films. Like, I think whenever you're making something like this, it's easy to just like put those thematic elements in, like in a line of dialogue or in one scene. Like, that's the message of the film. See, because we said it at the climax. But in a film like this, it just is apparent, imbued in every element of it. It's not something that they just like, well, we'll tack on there. Like, this is, as much as a film can be a passion thing or something that's driven by passion, it feels like, yes, they're passionate about this idea that like everyone can be a hero. We're all heroes. And if you're passionate about the idea, they're obviously not going to drop that ball, or, whatever. I hope they don't. So.
No, I don't think so. And, comfort in knowing that it's the same directors and writers, and that they seem to have been all conceived at the same time. So
yes. Yeah. For sure.
Good. All right. Well, I don't know. Any other big topics you want to bring up, or?
If you guys had any notes on the Prowler, it wasn't super thrilled with kind of like the way it ended.
I did feel like I just felt like the stakes weren't like, for that to be the cliffhanger.
Yeah,
it's like we literally just saw him travel universes and fight off thousands of Spider-Men.
Right. And we just saw him go on this huge monologue to his mom about how confident and buff he is. So to see him in that state, like right after that, I was like, this doesn't feel right.
And like
for some reason.
The dangling threat, the sword of Damocles, just didn't feel as like it does. Like, I get that the way these are structured, they can't have the actual biggest threat happen right now because they need that to happen at the end of the next movie. So, but it did feel like, well, yeah, of course he's going to get out of this and figure it out. Like, it's just one guy.
I don't think that the immediate threat is the thing that we're supposed to be concerned about. I think it's the implication of what does it mean that he can also be evil. And I think that's the thing that we're supposed. That's the thing that has me most interested. Actually, that did work for me, because I'm going, oh, okay, how this is character stuff we can chew on, and not just like, how is he going to get untied, and how is he going to, fight his way out of this room? Like, I don't really care about that so much.
Yeah, I think that's maybe partially why the note didn't leave me on the right space, because I wasn't really sure what the conflict was. He did, like, why is he being held there? Why? Just because he's the bad version?
Yeah, I guess because because I guess they recognize that it's him, and so the bad Miles is like, there's another version of me, another universe, and the potential implications that
I don't know. It just, without him even speaking a word, or he says like one line, but it I don't know. I mean, obviously, Matt, I 100% agree with you, and I'm very curious to see where they take that. I mean, it's we'll see if they did it better than Star Trek Nemesis. I don't know. They have a high bar, but
another thing just kind of reminded me, kind of speaking a little bit to the, I don't know, maybe some sort of messaging or themes kind of running throughout. I like the idea. I mean, I don't know, I guess, but I assume he's going to save his dad in the next movie, and he's not going to die. Could be wrong about that, but I'd like to think that he does, and I'd like to think that's intentional in the thematic element, meaning that, like, I think we're so caught up, or I don't know what the right way to put this is, that trauma must happen in order for you to fulfill, like, to be the best you could be.
Right.
And I really like this idea that, like, that's wrong. That doesn't mean that people who have trauma cannot manifest that way or use it, but this idea that you have to go through, it's this toxic badge, right? Like, that people then like wears. Like, I look at what I went through. It's like,
no, Sean. The only way you're going to become the best drummer is if J. Jonah Jameson throws cymbals at your head.
Also, J. Jonah Jameson in this, so he's now in 4 different Spider-Verses. At least.
I
that's
think
right.
I think J. Jonah Jameson being voiced by J.K. Simmons is a canon event.
Yeah, just that. It's like what was the Doctor Strange the scene, the thing that always has to happen in every universe. What's the word?
Wait. It's a fixed point. Are you talking about?
You're constant.
In one. Are you
Constant.
talking about in What If?
No, it was. Oh yeah,
Because What If?
was it What If or Doctor Strange 2? No, it was
No,
What If. Yeah, it was
in What If they deal with that idea where it's like,
Yes.
she has to die in every single universe, or
Yeah, so J.K. Simmons being J. Jonah Jameson is a constant, whatever it was called.
yeah.
I think Constant is from Lost.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I didn't watch that.
Oh well, there's multiverses in that, and time travel. Spoilers for like season.
I'm not gonna watch it.
3 on. Yeah. What else? I don't think I have too many other notes. Was there no post-credit scene?
No, there wasn't.
Was there really no
There was
post-credit
not.
Yeah.
No.
The post-credit scene is an entire movie.
Yes.
we get
Oh,
next year.
that is something. I'm glad they changed I'm glad it is not Across the Spider-Verse Part 2. I'm glad it is beyond the
They did the same thing with
Also-
Infinity War.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, good. Make them 2 separate movies with their own titles.
I
Part 1,
much
Part 2.
prefer that. Plus, now we have 2 Spider-Man trilogies with a weird naming convention that they've decided to stick with.
Yeah, exactly. Where was Tom Holland? We didn't get any Tom Holland. in
Yeah.
this. I guess Donald Glover is.
Yeah, I think they're saving him. I think he'll be in the next
Yeah,
one.
maybe.
I can
We'll
see
see.
that. I can see
I
that.
don't know.
I'm just got my fingers crossed.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Maybe.
Yeah. Let's do a No Way Home again and just bring all of them back.
And where's Tom? Is Tom Hardy gonna? Is Michael Keaton from in the Venomverse gonna show up and fight the Renaissance Vulture? That Renaissance Vulture also.
Oh man,
Oh, that was
such a
cool.
that was amazing.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was just like the first 10 minutes of the movie and didn't have anything to do with anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it introduced things, but you know what I mean.
But yeah, we got
Right.
Michael Keaton in
Good
both
movie.
worlds.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's true.
Oh yeah.
Very good.
We
movie.
got to find out what he's up to in the DC world
Yeah.
later this week.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Speaking of which,
I get to go tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Oh my.
Oh, I guess I could too if I wanted to. I don't want to that badly. Well, we'll see. I'll see it
Fair
eventually.
enough.
I'll see it before next week when we have to talk about it.
Yeah. It's
Sounds good.
homework. Well, yeah. Anything else then, Spider-Verse, before we wrap up?
No, I mean,
It's great.
Oh,
It's good.
that's all
I don't
got.
think we need to do recommendations for this one because, yeah, I think it's the most positive we've been on this show for
Yeah, in a
a
while.
while. Yeah. So, yeah, good job. Good job, everyone involved, and
Well
and
done.
us as well. We did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're great.
Yes. Congratulations to Joaquim Dos Santos, our best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
really proud
We
of
are
him.
proud of you.
We could probably get him on an episode. We can talk
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, probably.
Okay. All right. Yeah. We'll get right
Let's
on
get
that.
him on the Indiana Jones episode.
Oh boy. Can't wait for that. I'm tired of being this positive.
Exactly. You can't. Yeah, we got to go back negative. That's 2 weeks away. So
Yeah, I mean, that's only 2
Um,
weeks away. Because I wanted to rewatch
Yeah.
the Indiana Jones series before it came out, but I'm all like, well, then I have to watch number 4 again.
yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna do that too.
Okay.
But yeah, listeners, write in. Let us know about your Spider takes,
Hey.
Spider-Verse takes.
Hey. We are getting back on YouTube. We
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, we were using a podcasting server host thing that automatically put our episodes on YouTube, and then that host went out of business, so we got a new one, and they do not. And we tried to keep up by doing it manually, and we failed. So I'm uploading our most recent episodes, and I will be uploading them onto YouTube continually in perpetuity, and I'm also working on the backlog. So if that happens to be your favorite method of listening to podcasts, then hey, you're in luck, because we are publishing there as well. So that's
And feel free to leave comments on any of our wherever you're seeing our podcast, but on YouTube too, we get those comments.
comment section, email address, yumchunks@gmail.com, either one of them. Let us know what you think. We will read it on the thing, and we will talk about it, and
Yes.
and all that. All right. Well, Okay.
That's it. We stay tuned. To be continued.
To be continued.
In our Flash episode.
YumChunks will return.
The Flash.
Yes.
And other things this summer. Still a lot of stuff coming out, so stay tuned.
Yeah.
If you want to keep hearing our voices.
All right. Say goodnight, Ryan.
Good night, Ryan.
I
did it.
I know you're going to do that. I did it on purpose. What does Spider-Man say? Spider-Man away. Spider-Man ho.
No, he doesn't have any lines. Oh, that was also funny. Where he's like, Spider-Man's supposed to be funny, but Miguel's like the one unfunny Spider-Man.
Right.
Also a reason why I think he stole Spider-Man's powers.
Yeah.
Oh, because he isn't. Well, his power, maybe Spider-Man being funny is part of the powers you get when you get bitten by the spider.
Oh,
none of these people are normally funny.
Yeah.
I mean, Tobey Maguire really wasn't funny
until Spider-Man 3 when he dances.
That's true. That was the symbiote.
Well, he's funny, but more like accidentally funny.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We're laughing at him, but when he's Spider-Man, we're laughing with him.
I see. Okay.
Oh.
All right. Enough spider talk. We have a whole other Spider-Verse movie to talk about next year, so
sure do.
Let's leave it as is, and let's go and do.
Let's go eat some soup. Go eat your dinner. Jimmy.
I already had my dinner.
Oh, okay.
Don't tell me what to do.
The driest chicken noodle soup
I will.
ever. No soup, just the chicken and noodle.
This has been
After the credits.
a YumChunks podcast.
Yum